Good morning, everybody. And it seems a bit paradoxical to talk about African dryland in a place where it rains about 4 meters per year, to discuss about the degradation or the food security in the African dryland. But we are here on C4 campus, and African dryland are very important matters to us. Dryland, they represent about 40% of the land area, 60% in Africa. They are about 50% of the livestock. They produce about 45% of the food that we consume. 1/3 of the world population is living on dryland. And yet, they are largely overlooked and ignored. Sort of what you hear about dryland is when you have a famine in the Sahel or something, you don't need much about that. And at the same time, they are heavily degraded, and they are degraded because of unsustainable land uses, because of agriculture in marginal land, because of overgrazing, because of many reasons. The problem with degradation in the dryland, African dryland and other dryland, is a multifaceted problem. It lies at the interface between geomorphology, ecology, sociology, anthropology, and as a result, anything that is a single, simplistic, silver bullet solution is unlikely to work, and too often efforts to sustainably manage or restore dryland failed. The problem in terms of food security or sustainable environment in dryland is really about, it's not about a sustainable intensification, or it's not about maximization of yield. It's about finding a set of solutions of optimization of the use of water, land, vegetation resources under constraints like climate change and inadequate human and financial capacity. And for nature, optimization is relatively easy. It's sort of, here you see an example of what nature ends as a result on optimizing a dead log, and it's probably the best combination you can think given the current condition in terms of biomass, productivity, and diversity. For people, it's more difficult. For us, it's more difficult, and we fail very often at this optimization because we don't look at it. So, climate change. Climate change is here, as we all know, unfortunately, but in places like African dryland, climate has been very variable. It's changing a lot. In fact, the average year doesn't exist in African dryland. And people used to have the knowledge of this variation, and they knew how to make their cultivation, how to make their feed based on this climate variation from year to year. So unfortunately, with climate change, this knowledge needs to be updated, but it needs to be taken into account, because otherwise we are not going to be able to manage sustainably and ensure food security. Then there is the water question. Water is probably one of the most constrained resources in drylands by their nature. And thinking about, you need 1 liter of water to produce 1 kilocalorie of nutrition. That means that simply by eating, we are consuming 3,000 liters of water per day. And we need to invest in this management of water resources efficiently for ensuring food security in a African dryland. We cannot rely only on rain-fed agriculture. We need to invest, and we need to find technological and social solutions for this problem of this water and food security nexus in African dryland. We have seen climate change, we have seen water. Now the other constraint is soil. Most of the biodiversity in dryland is in the soil, and the soil is very fragile and it degrades very easily. So it's very important to invest in proper soil management, to look at how we can conserve and can restore the soil in dryland by using proper agricultural and management practices. And so when you have looked at climate, water, and soil, what you need to look at is at people. And of course, adaptive capacity will be key in this very variable environment, even more under climate change constraint. Unfortunately, adaptive capacity of human system in African dryland is pretty low because of lack of resources, very difficult constraining ecological condition, lack of capacity. So it's very important to invest also in building up the capacity of adaptation of human system in the dryland if we want to manage them properly. And this is where an organization like C4ICRAF can play a role while working both from government to local people, looking at the whole landscape, looking at issues in a way that are not simplistic as to be useless or not too complex and not being implementable, and looking at what are the options that are offered to the people to sustainably manage their land and improve their livelihood in a different context, and using that to create a set of optimal solutions in order for the African dryland to contribute to food security, to the rest of the FDG and the Paris Agreement. Thank you.